In 1901, sponge divers off a tiny Greek island pulled a corroded lump of bronze from a Roman shipwreck. Inside that lump were at least 30 interlocking gears, a differential mechanism, and an inscription naming planets. It was built around 100 BC. Nothing remotely like it appears in the human record for the next 1400 years. The artifact is called the Antikythera Mechanism, and it is the single most uncomfortable object in the history of technology. It computes solar eclipses. It tracks the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games. It models the moon's elliptical orbit using epicyclic gearing, a technique that doesn't reappear until the 1300s. The documented record is clear about what this device does. The documented record is far less clear about who, exactly, was capable of building it and why no one built another for the next millennium. October 1900. A storm drives Captain Dimitrios Kontos and his sponge diving crew to shelter behind the cliffs of Antikythera, a barren rock between Crete and the Peloponnese. The next morning, diver Elias Stadiatis descends in a brass canvas suit. At 60 meters, he stumbles onto the wreck of a Roman trading galley dated between 70 and 60 BC. Bronze and marble statues, amphorae, coins, and one lump of green-encrusted bronze the size of a shoebox. They almost left it behind. For 70 years, the lump sat in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, catalogued and largely ignored. Archaeologist Valerios Stais noticed in 1902 that a gear was visible inside the corrosion. The mainstream verdict at the time: probably a navigational astrolabe, probably medieval, probably contaminated by a latter wreck. The artifact was misdated by 1,000 years for half a century. The pattern matters. When something does not fit the technological timeline scholars expect, the default reaction is to assume the dating is wrong, not the timeline. In 1951, a Yale historian named Derek de Solla Price refused to let it go. Price spent the next 20 years on the fragments. In 1959, he published in Scientific American. This was a calculator, he wrote, and it was Greek, and it was older than Christ. In 1971, he used gamma radiography to image the gear train. He counted 30 wheels. He could not count them all. The community's response was polite skepticism. Price had to fight, page by page, for what is now textbook. Then in 2005, the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, led by Cardiff astronomer Mike Edmonds and physicist Tony Freeth, wheeled in an 8-ton industrial CT scanner built by a British firm specifically to image inside the fragments. They called it the BladeRunner. The scans found 2,060 Greek characters of inscription hidden inside the corrosion. They found gears Price had missed. They found a back dial that predicts which lunar and solar eclipses are coming, where they will be visible, and the color of each eclipse. At least 30 surviving gears, probably 37 in the original, cut by hand in bronze, with teeth shaped at an average angle of 60 degrees, and individual tolerance close to 1/10 of a millimeter. One gear has 223 teeth. That is not a coincidence. 223 lunar months is the Saros cycle. The eclipse period the Babylonians had catalogued for centuries. Whoever cut that gear knew the Saros. The mechanism is not just clever metalwork. It is Babylonian astronomy implemented in Greek mechanical hardware. The front face shows the position of the sun and moon against the zodiac. The moon pointer slows down and speeds up, modeling the actual elliptical orbit Hipparchus had measured a century earlier. The back face carries 2 spirals. One for the 19-year Metonic cycle, one for the 18-year Saros. Smaller dials track the 76-year Calippic cycle and the 4-year Olympiad. This is, by any working definition, an analog computer. It is the oldest one we have found by a margin of 1,500 years. Tony Freeth's 2021 reconstruction at University College London proposed a full-front Cosmos display. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all moving against the stars, all driven by nested epicyclic gears taking power from one hand crank. The team built a working brass replica. It tracks the planets correctly. The reconstruction is contested in detail. The surviving fragments do not preserve the planetary gear train, only the inscription that describes it. But the inscription is real, and it is specific. Where did this thing come from? The leading candidate is the island of Rhodes, around 100 to 70 BC. Rhodes was the workshop of the astronomer Hipparchus, the man whose lunar model the mechanism implements. Stoic philosopher Posidonius ran a school there that the Roman senator Cicero personally visited. And Cicero, writing in the 1st century BC, describes a planetary device built by Archimedes that sounds almost exactly like the Antikythera Mechanism. He calls it a sphere. He says it predicted eclipses. That is the second uncomfortable fact. The mechanism is sophisticated enough that it cannot be a one-off. Skilled hands made it. Skilled hands trained those hands. There was a workshop tradition. Archimedes, killed by a Roman soldier in 212 BC, was the most famous Greek mechanical engineer of antiquity. Cicero says one of his planetary devices was carried off to Rome as plunder and was still being demonstrated in senatorial circles 300 years later. None of those Roman devices have ever been found. After the mechanism, silence. The Library of Alexandria burns in stages across the next 4 centuries. Rome falls. The Greek mathematical tradition migrates to Byzantium and then to the Islamic world, where astrolabes appear in the 8th century. Flat, brilliant, but not gear-driven computers. The first European geared astronomical clock, comparable in complexity, does not appear until Richard of Wallingford's St. Albans clock, around 1330 AD. The gap between the Antikythera Mechanism and its nearest sibling in the human record is 14 centuries. That gap is where the wedge opens. The von Däniken and Hancock camp says 14 centuries of silence means the mechanism cannot be Hellenistic. It has to be inherited knowledge from a lost civilization, and it is a serious position. The gap is real. The lineage is missing. The Freeth and Edmonds camp says the gap is transmission failure. Burned libraries, melted bronze, 300 years of imperial collapse, swallowing the workshop tradition. I lean toward Freeth, because every astronomical fact the mechanism implements was already on Greek parchment when it was built. The mechanism is not impossible, it is improbable, and improbability is what gets erased by survivor bias. We do not have the others because bronze gets melted down, and ships do not usually sink on top of cliffs where Greek sponge divers find them 2,000 years later. So here is the honest question, and the comments are where this gets settled. Lost tech camp or transmission collapse camp? First word of your comment. I have made my call. Tell me what I am missing.